Welcome to the Copeland Coaching Podcast, where it's all about turning your job search into a slam dunk. Your host is Angela Copeland.
Welcome to the Copeland Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Copeland. Today, I'm in Anaheim, California at LinkedIn's annual conference, Talent Connect. And with me, I have Dan Shapero. Dan is the Vice President of Talent Solutions, Career, and Learning at LinkedIn. Dan, thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's so exciting to talk with you. You just did a keynote earlier, just a few minutes ago. I got a chance to see it. It was excellent.
It was super fun. It's great to be here in Anaheim.
Excellent. Well, I am so excited to talk with you about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really one of my very favorite platforms for job seekers. And we're here talking about how human resources and how the company uses LinkedIn. I'd love to tie that back today into how that really impacts the job seeker and how LinkedIn can help the job seeker when we're looking for a new job. So I think let's start off with something kind of general, and that is if I'm a job seeker and I've just started looking for a job, when it comes to LinkedIn, is there anything in particular that I should keep in mind?
Absolutely. Well, one of the beauties of LinkedIn is that it's a fantastic platform for people at all stages in their career. And when you're in the mode of trying to find a job, oftentimes I get the question, well, what should I do on LinkedIn? And I share a couple pieces of advice. I think the first thing is it's a great place to search for a job. There's over 20 million open jobs on LinkedIn at any given point. And though the people that do the best to land jobs actually use it in a much wider way. They use it to search for jobs. They use it to understand who they know at those jobs. They use it to research companies. They use it to reach out to people that might be in a position to make a hire, so they can make a connection. By using all of the parts of LinkedIn, they can stand out and really have an amazing job search. But if I sort of highlight a few in particular that I think are really powerful, anytime you're looking at a job, go to LinkedIn and see if you know someone at the company. We make it really easy to reach out and ask a connection you might have at that company for a referral. And we find the people that reach out to their connections and request referrals get hired at a much higher rate than people that don't. And so that's a really powerful way to increase your chances of hearing back, which is one of the primary things people are always asking me. How do I make sure I'm going to hear back when I apply to a job? How do I not feel like it's a black hole where I'm applying and nothing happens after that? So that's one. The second is there's a program called Open Candidates, where as a LinkedIn member, you can privately signal to the recruiting community that you're curious what's out there. And over 20 million people have opted into the Open Candidates program. And what we find is that they hear from recruiters at twice the rate than the average LinkedIn member does. And it's great for the recruiters too, because if they know that someone with amazing skills is curious about what else is out there, then they know that person's going to respond. So it's a win on both sides. They're more likely to hear, and for the recruiters, they're focused on an audience that really wants to hear from them. And then the last thing I'd say is make sure your profile's up to date. Make sure that it reflects the skills that you have, the experience you have, and also perhaps a little bit on what you're looking for. That's a really useful way for recruiters to understand what would be exciting for you so that they can reach out to the right people.
Those are all really good points. I think one thing you mentioned in the beginning was that it's good for all stages. And that's actually one of my favorite things about LinkedIn is it's not just for when you're looking for a job. It's also while you're, in your current job.
Absolutely.
And it's as you're building your skills and all these things. So it's not something that you should really wait to update your profile, for example, until you're actually looking. You should always try to keep it up to date.
That's exactly right. In fact, the world used to think about the recruiters used to think about the world as there were the people that were looking for a job and that's all they cared about, and then there was everyone else. And actually, most people today live on this spectrum over the course of their career. There are moments where they really need a job, they're out of work, they need to provide for their families, and finding a job is their job. And then there are people that are just curious about what else might be out there. Maybe they like what they're doing, but they're wondering if there's something more exciting that they could be doing or they could be learning faster. And we find that LinkedIn's a great place for people at all stages in that process. And one of the big things is to make sure that you're always showing your best on LinkedIn so that if that perfect recruiter finds you, they'll reach out and you can have a conversation.
Absolutely. So, as I've talked with job seekers about Open Candidate, the question they've had for me is, wow, is my current employer going to find out that I'm looking? And I think that they won't, but you tell me.
They won't. So the way it works is that only recruiters see this information, and all the recruiters at your employer are excluded.
That's great. It makes it something that you can actually use. And I think it includes different things like the types of roles you're looking for, the cities you're open to. I mean, there's a lot of things that seems like you can really include to give to a recruiter to help them to find you.
That's exactly right.
In terms of the skills gap, that seems to be something that's just coming up all the time. I mean, the tighter the job market is, it seems like the more it's on the news, employers are talking about it. And, I know LinkedIn is really working on this issue, and they're kind of helping employers to understand the skills gap, helping them to be able to find those unique candidates. I'm curious from the candidate side, how can we kind of get involved in the skills gap issue? How can we use it to our favor when we're job searching?
Yeah, I would say that there's two ways. I think the first way is to get educated on what employers are looking for, because you as a candidate might be a great fit in general, but there's one or two things that you might be missing that if you had those things or you were better at those things, then you'd be that much more attractive. And it's a mix of hard skills and soft skills. If we look across our data, we see tremendous demand for more technical skills, whether it's digital marketing or learning how to code or learning certain software programs that might be applicable at work. Employers are looking for those things, but they're also looking for things like oral communication skills and written communication skills and how do you collaborate with others. And so finding out a little bit more about what the employers that you want to work for, what they're looking for, I think is a great place. And then one of the products we have on LinkedIn is LinkedIn Learning. And LinkedIn Learning is a library of over 10,000 courses on a wide range of topics. And by watching those courses, it'll help you prepare for those interviews and then be in a much better position to be a candidate of choice to the employer. So that's one area I would recommend. The other area is we publish workforce reports periodically that share about where are the skills gaps in different industries and different locations. So you might realize that something you're really good at is in high demand in an industry that you're not as familiar with, and that would be a path to securing a job that you might not have thought of. Or maybe the labor market around you is not as favorable as one that's in a different city, and if you're open to changing where you live, then you might be able to get a job that otherwise would be hard in the location you're currently in. Mm-hmm. This is all about leveraging data to make smarter choices about our careers and then figuring out how we take the next step to move the ball forward.
Absolutely. It's interesting, I think, when you go in and you look at a particular job posting as a job seeker, LinkedIn will actually tell you where your skills match and where they don't match. And I think it's, like you said, it's an opportunity to use LinkedIn Learning. It's also an opportunity, I think, to review your profile and see, maybe you already know how to do that particular thing in digital marketing, but it's just not showing up on your profile. So it does seem like LinkedIn really gives a lot of good feedback back to the job seeker.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. We have a feature called How You Match. And for every job, we will line up your skills against the skills that job requires. And to your point, what's great about that feature is it helps you self-assess for that job, helps you understand whether or not you have what the employer is looking for. But it's also useful because the employers are doing the same calculation. Mm-hmm. They're looking at the job and they're looking at your profile. And so if there's something and it's not represented, it's a really good time to make sure that your profile holistically represents what you're capable of.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the workforce report. I actually just found that recently. It comes out every single month. And not only does it have information about, skills gaps, some of them are by city and you can start to drill down into local areas. I mean, I found this to be incredible, and I believe it's a public report that anybody can find. Mm-hmm. If you just look, I think maybe you Google it or find it on LinkedIn. But man, I was really impressed with that report.
Thank you.
So you mentioned the black hole, and that is one of, I'd say, possibly the most frustrating part about job searching to any job seeker. I know that based on your talk this morning here at LinkedIn, there is some technology that LinkedIn is putting in place to help us as a job seeker and then also to help the employer to have it be less of that black hole experience. Is there any of that technology that you could maybe highlight for us and how you're solving that issue?
Yes, the most powerful thing about LinkedIn from a job seeker perspective, in my opinion, is it's where the recruiters are. There are hundreds of thousands of recruiters using LinkedIn every day to try to fill their next role for their company. And it's that audience which is the group that you want to hear back from. And so we have a tremendous amount of products and technology that we build for the recruiting community. And that's why we're here at Talent Connect in Anaheim. We have 4,000 people from around the world, leaders in recruiting organizations, to leverage the LinkedIn to its best capacity. And what that means is when a job seeker applies to that job, they're that much more likely to hear back because it's where the recruiters are. And so we build systems in our product to make sure that when you do apply and your profile is viewed, or a recruiter reviews your application, that you get a signal back as quickly as possible to know that something's happened. Because that's one of the biggest frustrations we always hear about is, I don't know if anyone ever actually reviewed the application that I provided. But in addition, we also recommend not waiting for the recruiters to get back to you, because you should make sure that if you have a connection at the company that you reach out, or maybe you can discover someone at the company that went to your school or worked at the employer that you used to work at or that you currently work at, and reaching out to them sometimes is a wonderful way to get your foot in the door and to start a conversation. You can learn more about them and you can get them excited about you.
Absolutely.
So I would say leverage both. Reach out to apply to jobs, but also see if you have another way to engage the company through someone you know or someone that has a common affinity with you.
I love that message. I am always encouraging job seekers to do a little more than just apply online. Absolutely. I think that's great. And I love that feedback loop that LinkedIn has, because I think for many job seekers, not getting selected is not a huge deal. It is just not knowing whether or not you were selected or what happened, or like you said, if anyone ever saw your application. So this is extremely helpful.
The other thing I recommend to people that are trying to figure out where, how they stack up against other candidates is go look at the people on LinkedIn that have the job at the company you're applying to. If you're applying to a marketing manager job, go look at other marketing managers at that company, see what their background looks like, and it'll give you a sense of what that company values. And you'll learn a little bit about whether you're likely a fit, but you'll also learn about things about yourself you want to bring forward in either your resume or in your profile, so you'll stand out that much more. It's almost like you're doing your research on ultimately what the company is looking for based on their past experience.
Mm-hmm. I've actually recommended that to really young job seekers lately too, who are trying to decide, like, should I go to grad school? Should I take a certification of some kind? It's go and find those people that you admire, who you aspire to be like, look at their LinkedIn profile and see what they did. And just see if maybe there's something in there that you're interested to also pursue.
Yeah.
I think that kind of research is so valuable.
Yeah, and this is particularly important when you're thinking about a career pivot, because you can get a sense for whether or not a company hires people from lots of different kinds of career backgrounds. You know, some companies tend to really want people with very specific industry experience, and it shows up in the profiles of the people they've hired in the past. Other companies take a much wider view of what talent looks like, and they may be the companies that you want to focus on when you're trying to figure out how to make a career change, either from an industry perspective or from a functional perspective.
I think that's totally true, because sometimes you can be very qualified and able to do the work, but if you're not the person who fits the profile of what they're looking for, you maybe just need to look for a more open-minded hiring manager, is what I sometimes tell people.
Yeah.
It's not about beating yourself up always. Sometimes it's finding that company that's open to you.
Yeah.
And speaking of being open to different people, you talked this morning about diversity, and you talked about it a lot, and you showed a video, and I'll be honest, the hair on my arms just like stood up when you showed this video, because it is such an important issue, and I'm so glad that LinkedIn is actively involved in this issue. I'd love to know, what is LinkedIn doing to help encourage companies to improve diversity?
Yeah, well, it is a priority. It's a priority to us as an employer. We've always been an organization that's been very focused on trying to build diverse teams in our organization, make people feel included and they belong at the organization. It's not just about who is at your company, it's about how they feel in their work, which is a big part of it. And for the first time, we announced product efforts that we've made to help our recruiting customers hire more diverse teams. And we're starting with gender, but have plans to go beyond that. And the goal is to give employers data that they can use to understand how males and females are reacting to their recruiting efforts differently. So are they being really successful with men but not women? Perhaps they're met in their messaging, perhaps in the way that they're interviewing people. We can give them that information. And also we can understand if the talent pools that they're looking at have the diversity mix that they'd like to have with their company. Perhaps they're recruiting in spaces that are naturally geared towards men, whether from an industry's perspective or from a the schools that they're hiring from, things like that. And so our goal is with the information on LinkedIn, we can put better tools in the hands of recruiters so they can ultimately hire a more representative mix of people.
I love that. I mean, and I think you're right. Having that data is so valuable. My undergrad is computer engineering. I had 2 male roommates in college because there were no women in my major.
Yeah. Well, if you work at a semiconductor company and you're trying to hire women into your technical roles, your makeup is probably mostly men, and the other companies you're used to hiring from are also probably mostly men. But there are other companies in other industries that have a much richer mix of women. And why not start getting good at recruiting in those categories, whether it's from healthcare or from hospitality or from, like it could be from any number of places. But when organizations don't have data, they tend to do what they're used to doing. And so what we're hoping we can do is provide data to open up new avenues where people can find new ways to build diverse teams.
Absolutely. And it sounded like one of the ways that you're selling it to companies is, how do I say this? Kind of through money, like in terms of results, like saying if you have a more diverse team, your company will be worth more, it will generate more value. Is that kind of one of the ways that you're positioning it to say, you guys should pay attention to this?
I think it's well understood that one of the most clear manifestations of teams that win is that they tend to be diverse. We just are repeating that. That's a well understood fact for people in the recruiting industry and people in talent. The challenge is that it's a priority for everyone, but a lot of organizations have been frustrated by their inability to really move the needle on this issue. Mm-hmm. And so our goal is to have a role to play in the solution. And what we think we can do that's different is providing information that helps companies adopt strategies that are different from what they've done in the past. And it's a first step for us, but we're excited to get going.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, you also announced today something that sounds really exciting, which is an acquisition of a company called Glint. Mm-hmm. And when you talked about it, you talked a lot about happiness. And, as a job seeker, many times the reason that we're doing this is there's maybe something not quite right where we're working. Tell me, how does Glint get involved? And maybe not necessarily in the job search process, but how does Glint come into the picture?
Yeah. Glint as a company, actually LinkedIn is a customer of Glint. So we first learned about the Glint product by using it ourselves. And what it does is it surveys the employees of companies periodically throughout the year and helps understand how they feel about their work, how they feel about the organization, its leadership, their manager. And like we know, if we want to work on any problem, we need to measure our progress. And so Glint becomes the way that companies measure how people feel about coming to work every day. And ultimately, when they can measure it, then they can start to improve it and fix it over time, which makes people happier at work. And everyone knows that happier people at work are more productive. And so our idea is that we think every company in the world should have a way to track and measure the overall happiness and health of their organization. And what I would encourage job seekers to do is when you're interviewing, ask other people questions around, how does the organization track happiness of our employees? What things do you think the organization does well to facilitate a sense of well-being? And what things could the company work on? Because we all know that we spend a lot of time every day at work, and it's important that those hours are enjoyable and something that we can contribute to something we're passionate about.
I totally agree. It's interesting because I talk to a lot of job seekers and then I talk to employers, and sometimes the employers I'm talking to assume that people are looking for the most money. And I keep seeing data that says although money is important, things like happiness are actually even more important. So This is really exciting.
I agree. People leave the data says when people leave companies, usually they leave managers. And I think one of the powers of Glint is it's not just about telling the overall company how people are feeling, but it's at all levels of the organization. How does each manager's team feel? Mm-hmm. Which is a great way to help managers get better. Mm-hmm. Being a manager is hard. And oftentimes when we have managers that make our lives hard, we just need to give that manager the tools they need to be successful and help them learn the skills to be a great manager. And tracking how your team feels about you is a great first step.
That's great. That's great. Well, so I'd love to ask you probably the most common question I get about LinkedIn all the time, individually when I talk to job seekers and when I talk to groups, and that is, should I connect to strangers on LinkedIn? People are really worried. There's, I guess, pros and cons. I'm curious, what would you tell us as job seekers? Should we be connecting to strangers on LinkedIn?
I don't believe so. I think that the people in your network should be people that you know and perhaps have done work with in the past or intend to do work with. And the bar that is a useful one to set is, are these people that you would help if they reached out to you for help? And if the answer is yes, then absolutely, because the idea of LinkedIn is this network over time becomes people that you go to for help and they come to you for help. And so if you don't know someone, I probably wouldn't say that they're above that bar for you.
Right. It's good feedback. And I think, the very last thing I want to be sure and point out, you mentioned LinkedIn Learning. And all the time I'm checking out LinkedIn Learning and the latest courses, and I'm sharing it with other people.
Yeah.
But I get a lot of feedback. People are just now learning about it, or maybe they haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
LinkedIn Learning is based on, I believe it was lynda.com years ago, is that right? And it was acquired. And tell me about the content and the sorts of things we should be looking for on LinkedIn Learning.
So the mission of LinkedIn is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And one of the areas that we felt really strongly about could contribute to that was the idea of helping professionals learn new skills to get opportunities that they otherwise couldn't. And so about 3 years ago, we acquired lynda.com, which was the leader in online learning for professional skills. And we've now brought all of the expertise of lynda.com and making amazing learning content, and we've infused that into LinkedIn so that people can learn as part of their daily experience. It's a wonderful resource. There are over 10,000 courses across both technical skills and things more soft skills oriented. And I highly recommend to people listening that if you're thinking about entering into a new job or exploring something that you don't know, or even just refreshing on the skills that you have, but it's been a while since you were trained on them, it's a really efficient resource to get right to great learning content and actually learning from instructors that have been in the jobs that you're interested in. One of the unique things about LinkedIn Learning is it's not taught by professional teachers, it's taught by practitioners.
I love that. And the people who are teaching the courses are people we recognize from industry, and they're just so well organized and so well put together. I know you have a whole team that helps design and film and put those courses together. It's great content. Well, normally I ask my guests for a website where we can go and check out their work. But I'm assuming your recommendation would be for us to all go and check out LinkedIn and some of these features we talked about.
Go to linkedin.com and download the app on your phone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate you taking the time.
It's a pleasure. It really is.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed the episode today, please don't forget to help me out. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. The more subscribers we have, the easier it is for job seekers to find the show.
Thank you for listening to the Copeland Coaching Podcast today with your host, Angela Copeland. Tune in next time to get more great tips on turning your job search into a slam dunk.